Okay, so to continue, unfortunately I have to keep flipping through these slides because it keeps putting me to the beginning. Anyways, so let's think a little bit about this concept that has been used in writings in various cultures and mythologies and prose and poetry about the seven seas. What is this seven seas? Probably comes again from the time when people didn't know the entire structure of the planet's surface, the oceans and their characters and so on. But the basic question of whether there is a difference between a sea and an ocean still remains. The definition is not very strict, of course, because we don't say ocean water, we say sea water when we are talking about the properties. But in general, seas tend to be smaller and maybe fresher, but you have things like the Caspian Sea or the Black Sea, which are mostly like land seas with a little bit of salt. So seas tend to be usually enclosed by land, but obviously we have the Arabian Sea with the Bay of Bengal. We have the Sargasso Sea, which is completely in the open ocean, and so on and so forth. Nonetheless, the 15th century Europeans used to think of the seven seas as the Red Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, the Persian Gulf, Black Sea, Adriatic Sea, Caspian Sea, and Indian Ocean. That's what they knew mostly at the time, and this was before the US was discovered. Just a brief comparison of the oceans to continents, which we already looked at. The average ocean depth is about 3682 meters, but this is based on whatever data we have, which is not complete. And average continental elevation, on the other hand, is only 840 meters, so much shallower. Deepest ocean trench we saw is more than 11 kilometers, and highest mountain is about 8,800 meters. Who are the people who had explored the ocean for us early on? The early explorers, the main thing to think is if you don't know what the oceans really are out there beyond what you can see, then how do you prepare for it? How do you prepare for the winds, the currents, the food, and the lack of winds to sail, for example, and so on. But they used boats to seek new fishing grounds mostly, looking for food. And the ocean, the vast ocean, obviously has always been a good medium for trade and interaction between cultures. So the timing of the explorations continue to be revised along the way. But one of the main challenges is to explain how the faraway tiny islands in the vast Pacific Ocean got peopled. How did people reach those islands? When did they reach them? From where did they come? And so on. So now we use genetic techniques and other data to try to guess how this could have happened. So this is a nice map showing the Micronesian islands, the Lapitas, who were some of the earliest ceramics people, the Melanesian colonizations, and the large part of the vast Pacific Ocean, the so-called Polynesia, which goes from Hawaii down to Easter Island, and also the Maoris in New Zealand, and so on. So some theory was proposed that maybe people used balsa rafts to get from South America into the Polynesian islands, and there was a sail to demonstrate that this can work. Heyerdahl actually built a balsa raft and managed to sail across, but the genetic evidence says that most of these populations come from Asia, Taiwanese origin, for example, the current Taiwan. But you can see the dates that the Lopitas reached some of the islands as early as 1100 BC. Around 800 AD, there was some migration into New Zealand. Back in 300 AD, there were peopling of the Hawaiian Islands. The cross-Pacific travel to French Polynesia and the Marquesas Islands in the South Pacific probably happened around 30 BC, and much later in 1200 AD, Easter Island got colonized, and so on. So the written records obviously don't go that far back, only go to about 16th century, but there are archaeological evidences that 4000 to 5000 BC, many of the Melanesian, Polynesian, and other islands were occupied. Thor Heyerdahl is the one who used the balsa raft to try to argue that migration could have happened from the South Pacific or the South American land onto Polynesian islands. So let me stop this module here and come back to it the next module.